Hey everybody, welcome back. Keep 7 Gaming here. Just wanted to go over a deck today, the Mono Red Obosh deck that's been floating around. I've been seeing a few articles, I've been reading on a few subreddits that a lot of people are seeing a lot of success with this deck, but I myself have yet to really have a game where I feel like this deck outperforms its predecessor, its Mono Red predecessor, the Believe in the Embercleave deck. That deck obviously focused around drawing and using Embercleave, equipping it on a creature, and getting in for that first and double strike and all that shenanigans. This deck and a lot of people I've seen are claiming performs more consistently and better. It focuses around having Obosh as your companion, where Obosh restricts you to only odd converted mana costs in your deck or in your library. In your deck. And then if a source you control with an odd converted mana cost would deal damage to a player, it doubles that damage to that permanent or player instead. So really, Obosh is just kind of the replacement for Embercleave, kind of. Where Embercleave used to be your main damage dealer in the old Mono Red, Obosh is now your new kind of win con in the new Mono Red, or in this version of Mono Red. You still have things like Annex, you still have things like Bone Crusher Giant, Scorch Spitter, your 1/1s. I've seen decks with Phoenix of Ash in it. I think Phoenix of Ash is generally included because of the auto converted mana cost and the recursion, because you can play it from the graveyard. But the other win con, or the other major card that was incorporated into the deck, is Heraldic Banner, which when it enters the battlefield, you get to choose a color, and then creatures of that color get +1/+0. And it's creatures you control, so it's not like you'd be buffing, if you're in the mirror match, you wouldn't be buffing up your opponent's cards. You can also use it to ramp into Obosh, because you can tap it to add 1 mana of any chosen color. So actually, a very great addition. Also appears in the Mono Black version. Both the Mono Black and Mono Red are both very aggressively minded decks, both aggro decks, absolutely in their nature. But I'm going to take this to the ladder. I just got to Platinum, so I don't really care about losing games, and that's what I'm expecting to do, because I'm seeing people talk about this deck a lot, and they're saying that they're getting a lot of wins. They're saying that the deck is very consistent. I'm just not seeing it. I'm seeing this deck peter out by turn 3, and then the rest of the game is pretty much you're just on the losing end of a fight the entire time. Maybe I'm just not piloting it well enough. I like to think I'm a fairly decent Magic player, but I see this deck petering out super early, and then it's a lost game. And I know that generally with Mono Red and with the aggro decks, that typically is how it goes, but almost pretty consistently for me, this deck peters out after you get to turn 3 or turn 4. Your answers have kind of diminished, and your opponent is able to kind of stabilize the board and start turning the game into their favor. Even by the time you get Obosh down, usually it's too late. By the time you hit that 5 mana, it's usually too late. They've already stabilized, and Obosh is not a threat, even if you're doing double damage. But maybe I'm just not piloting it well. But I figured we'd go through, we'd play some games, and maybe people can give me some feedback on where they see that I'm making misplays. But I feel like as far as Mono Red and Mono Red aggro decks, and this deck specifically, it's kind of tough to make misplays, because all you're doing is just playing creatures. Maybe I'm removing the wrong things, but more or less, I think this deck is a little overhyped. I don't think it performs as well as everybody says it does, especially in the current meta. I think these style decks are kind of not particularly great. Or at least the way the meta is right now, I don't think that these decks are particularly great, especially when you have things like Luca, Agent of Treachery out there right now. Your Obosh is target public enemy number 1 for them, so as soon as you play him out, that's their target to steal. They take it back, and then your deck is dead. I just don't think that this deck is as great as everybody says it is. But we'll play it on the ladder, and we'll see how it goes. Maybe I'll play a little bit of public matches, casual matches first. I kind of hate doing mono red in casual, so maybe we'll just hop right into it. I mean, if I lose games, it's not a big deal because I just hit plat, but we'll see how it goes. So anyway, I guess we can kind of go through the cards here, but you probably know it if you play Magic at all. But 4 copies of Fervent Champion. It's a first strike 1/1 with haste. Pretty basic. If you're lucky enough to draw 2 in your hand in your opener, you can play them out, and if they're attacking, they get +1/+0 for each Fervent Champion that's attacking. So if you're lucky enough to have 2 in your starting hand, on turn 2 you can have 2. You can get 4 damage in essentially, and it's first strike, so you can remove any 2/2s they might have played by that point. 4 copies of Grim Initiate, another first striker, and when he dies you amass 1, so it's, board wipe prevention, removal prevention, and first strike. All good things. Again, if you get Heraldic Banner out there and you can pump him up to a 2/1, you can remove, anything that has 2 toughness without taking any damage or having him removed from the battlefield. Scorch Spitter, which it's just more way to kind of snowball some damage. Every time it attacks, it deals damage to the player or planeswalker that it's attacking. So good way to snowball damage, get more damage in. I think I read somewhere that Obosh is supposed to increase the pings that Scorch Spitter does, but in a few play tests with this deck I saw, I had Obosh out there and Scorch Spitter was still only doing 1 damage for, when it attacks, not the attack itself, but the ping of 1 damage that it did to the player or planeswalker was still only doing 1. So unclear. I read elsewhere that it increased that. Didn't see it myself. Shock, just 2 damage removal. Shock is, I believe, pumped by Obosh, so Shock becomes 4 damage. Tin Street Dodger is pretty self-explanatory. The haste 1/1 for 1 mana, and you get a 1 mana can't be blocked unless creatures have Defender, which you don't see too much out there. Obviously, we're seeing a lot of Arboreal Grazers out there right now, but that has Reach and not Defender, which a lot of people forget about. So, Annex is a staple. Protection against board wipe. With the creation of 1/1 tokens, and you create 2 if it has 4 or greater. Generally, when you're playing Annex, you hopefully will have him with 4 power or greater. Bone Crusher Giant, more 2 damage removal for 2 mana, and then you can hard cast him for, to get a 4/3 on the board, and then anytime he's a target of a spell or ability, he does 2 damage to that spell's controller. So solid card to have in any red deck, really. 4 light up the stages were just ways to essentially draw 2. Again, another staple if you're playing aggro, just a way to give yourself options when this deck obviously runs out of steam pretty quickly. 2 Phoenix of Ashes, again, it's just a flying haste 2/2 to get out there. 3 mana, you have a little bit of recursion in that you can bring it back from the graveyard, and escapes with a +1/+1, so that's pretty good. And then it also has a pump ability where you can pay 3 mana. Let's say, if you're running out of steam, you don't really have much other plays that you can make, you can just pay 3 mana, give it +2/+1. If you have Heraldic Banner out there, then you have what? I mean, if this thing escapes, it's a 3/3. You pump it, that's a 5/3. And then if you have Heraldic Banner, that's a 6/3. So you can essentially have a 6/3 out there. Heraldic Banner, staple card of the deck, giving all your creatures +1/+0. We're only playing in red here, so you'd obviously choose red. Unless you're a psycho and choose black for whatever reason and only pump Obosh. I usually see 4 Castle Embereths and 18 Mountains, but I have chosen to just go with 1 because that is all I have. So I didn't really choose. I was forced to only go with the 1 mountain. So 1 mountain, 22 lands overall, 1 Castle Embereth for the pump, where you can pay 3 mana, tap it, and creatures you control get +1/+0, and then 21 mountains. So pretty basic deck, filled with creatures, some interaction, but mostly you're just putting stuff down, swinging in, and hoping for the best. So we'll get into some matches. Gifratronic is our first foe for the day. I don't hate this hand. We have ways to refill our hand, or not refill our hand, but we have ways to draw 2. We have some early interaction, and we have some early plays. I'd like to have haste somewhere in this opening hand, but it's not there. We're playing a Yorion deck, which potentially could be very good for us, depending on which kind of Yorion deck it is. They might not be prepared for a quick game. Usually takes the Yorion decks a few turns to set up. We might be able to. Oh, I shouldn't have played that land. I should have just attacked. Do I risk? Yeah, fuck it. Might as well use it. Shouldn't have done it. Ah, thank God. So next turn, we can play a land. We can Bone Crusher Giant. That'll take Bone Crusher Giant out of the exile, and then we can play the Scorch Spitter. And what I mean by taking Bone Crusher Giant out of exile is obviously, you know, with Light Up the Stage, you draw 2 cards, they get exiled at the end of your next turn. By playing Bone Crusher Giant's Stomp, we do 2 damage to him, and we get to save Bone Crusher Giant to cast later, rather than having a hard cast with 3, and then we lose the Scorch Spitter. Alrighty, so we're going to shock one of those 2 tokens. It had flash, so I don't know why they didn't just wait. And then we can cast the Bone Crusher Giant, or we can attack with just the Grim Initiate. What we might want to do is just establish a board presence that they're going to be afraid of. Just attack with everything. They lose the token. We'll probably lose a Scorch Spitter here, but I'm okay with that. Because now they have a clear board. They can't use those tokens if they have a Luca, but they're quite a few mana away from a Luca. And we are close to an Obosh. Okay. So they have 2 tokens, but now we have 2 attackers that they are going to want to block. But they lose their tokens if they do block. And you know what? Just for Pete's sake, I'm going to attack with the Scorch Spitter. So the Scorch Spitter ping did increase. So now we know the answer to that. We have him at 6 life. They gotta have a big time. Shatter the Sky. Okay. So that leaves us with the 1/1. We can get more. Let's attack first. Let's not make that mistake again. The reason we attack first is we don't want to play a land, so that we can light up the stage. If we draw a land, we can play that land, rather than just exiling land. Alright, so we're just going to do 2 to the face. We'll play this, and we'll play the Bone Crusher Giant because he knows about it, keeping our hand a secret. We're keeping our hand a secret because we can just Bone Crusher Giant him next turn, and we win the game. So hopefully he plays his mana out, trying to get rid of this board presence, which he has to address. And if he spends his mana doing that, rather than worrying about what's in our hand, we just cast the Bone Crusher and he scoops anyway. So that's a game. Alright, so we're picking up a game 1. Alright, Eichhorn is our next opponent. I like this hand, but I'd like to see more lands, but when you run 22, that's what you're going to have to deal with. So we're going to keep 7. True to our name. We'll go Fervent into Scorch Spitter probably, or maybe Fervent into, we also have the option to play Bone Crusher Giant. By Bone Crusher Giant, I mean play Stomp to remove whatever he might be playing next. He's playing a Lurrus deck, and he's already played black mana. I'm assuming this is that black-white enchantments. Oh, Death Touch, interesting. So, what we could do, if we remove that, he gets a 1/1 with flying. We'll have to figure out a way to remove that. But as of right now, that stands in our way. So we can just play this. He gets a 1/1 with flying, but our Fervent Champion has first strike. So if he blocks, he just loses the token. And then now we can play the Tin Street Dodger. Both of them are unblockable. He'll be getting 1 damage in each turn, but our clock is faster than his. He can play the Lurrus and recur. Yeah, that could be a problem. He plays the Lurrus, he can recur that Orzhov Enforcer and just keep getting a 1/1 and keep getting 1/1s. So our best bet might be playing Bone Crusher Giant. Because if we play a bunch of 1/1s, I mean, he's got easy removal for him. If we play the 4/3, we can remove what he has on the field, and he's going to want to keep that. Bone Crusher Giant could also keep his mana busy trying to figure out a way to get rid of it. But if he plays the Lurrus, he just gets back Orzhov Enforcer. This is going to be a tough game. I don't think he's going to be playing any board wipe because, well, he could play board wipe. Because if a lot of his deck is Afterlife stuff, he wipes the board and then he gets a bunch of 1/1s. So I have a lot to, but I don't know what board wipe he would have with mono black. Maybe, oh fuck. Extinction Event. He names Odd and I'm dead. So I don't really know what to do here. Play the Bone Crusher Giant, because he already knows about it, and it gives him something to focus on. The best I can hope for is, like, mana, Heraldic Banner, ramp into Obosh. Yeah, Myers should have thought about that. Interesting. Death Touch. Shouldn't have played out the Scorch Spitter. I should have held the Scorch Spitter. Well, actually, no. Because he doesn't have anything to block with. So that was the right play. Now I can play Void up the stage. And I need options. I need to figure something out. And fast. I can play both of those next turn, so that's pretty good. And then Obosh after that. I mean, alternatively, you play Obosh next, but then I don't get to play either of those. They both go to the graveyard. But this isn't looking good for us. He's still got a full grip. And we've got 1 land in ours. And he gets to recur some cards. I'm assuming he brings back the Enforcer. Or maybe Myers oh, any of those enchantments. And he gets to do that each turn. Yeah. This sucks for us. And he gets that Myers Grasp for my Annex. So I need a way to get rid of that Lurrus. He can only play 1. I'm gonna have to play the Obosh. No attacks. Losing out the Annex and the Scorch Spitter sucks. But either way, if I played either of them or both, he would Myers Grasp the Annex. Which I guess would have left us with 1/1s with. What are those going to do? I just gotta hope. I gotta play Obosh and hope that I draw into something really good. If I get a shock, that would be dope. Yeah, that's game. Bazoo is our next opponent. It's a lot of removal and not a lot of creatures. But a fair amount of land. I'm going to keep it in hopes that we draw into it. I mean, the Bone Crusher Giants eventually become 4/3s, but and then what I might do is just play out the land and then play the Bone Crusher Giant next turn. Incubation Druid. Okay, well, maybe not. Maybe we just shock an Incubation Druid. Swing in. And then, yeah, fuck it. I guess we just go for the... Because we gotta get him on the clock. So there's a board presence he has to answer. If he spends his mana, oh, what does that take control? Okay. So let's see here. Let's attack and see what he does. Okay. So now do I play out the Obosh? Let's play out another Bone Crusher Giant. I have a feeling he has more removal. And the more he has to just answer our Bone Crusher Giants, the more likely our Obosh is to survive. And he scoops. Alright, so we're 2 wins, 1 loss. Our next opponent for the day is Huntley, who looks to be significantly higher in platinum than we are. I like this hand a lot. Cat deck. This would be an interesting matchup. Playing the Fervent Champion. Usually Fervent Champion is the go-to first pick in a Mono Red deck because of the first strike. Usually not a bad pick. Do I even bother shocking that? If I shock the cat now, I'm gonna do it. I'm probably gonna regret it. Just because he doesn't have a food to play it back, so he could slow him down a little bit. The splash of red makes me nervous about Claim the Firstborn. But he has to play... The reason I took the cat out is it's going to be a couple turns before he can get... Alright, that's fine. What does this do again? When it enters the battle for creature... Well, whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So, we'll play out Tin Street Dodger. I'm going to hold on to the Bone Crusher Giant. We might find a better target for it. And that 1/1's going to die anyway from this attack. Might as well do this. So we lose life, he gains life. The life gain does kind of suck for us. Mayhem Devil. So that is a better target. I wish we drew into a... He's got to block that with the Mayhem Devil, which is good. Getting rid of his Mayhem Devil is big for us. And we get 2 tokens out of the deal, so I'd say this is a good trade. And each of our 1/1s does 2 damage. Hopefully we get a target for our Bone Crusher Giant this turn, making me happy. Oh man. Alrighty. And he scoops. And we haven't drawn a single Heraldic Banner this entire set of games. Our final opponent for the day, X-Toma. 2 Grim Initiates. Again, I would love to see some haste in the opening hand, but I don't hate this hand. I like this hand. Another Lurrus deck. Is it cycling? We shall see. No, more of the auras maybe? Whisper Squad. No, this is probably gonna be... If I had to guess, this is gonna be another cat deck. We play the light up the stage, why not? I know we play the land, but... Alrighty, so we can play both of those next turn, so that's nice. We can get rid of his Whisper Squad. I don't know that that's particularly... We might just want to smash face rather than smash the Whisper Squad. He attacks with that Dreadhorde Butcher. We have first strike, so that's dumb. And he can kill our Grim Initiate, but we get a 1/1 out of the deal, so... Not a bad trade there at all. I mean, I guess it's worth doing this, just so he can't get more Whisper Squads out of his library. We'll play him down. We'll attack face. If he plays Lurrus, he can get something back, and that's fine, because we'll just kill the Lurrus. So I'm hoping he plays Lurrus, but he does not. Let's see here. Just get rid of that. And we won't attack. We can get a Bone Crusher Giant down next turn, or we can get Annex down. We won't block here. I'm glad he attacked. I don't think that that was a smart move on his part. I think we'll play Obosh. He's given us the Your Go, which, admittedly, yeah, probably we deserve it. We're playing Mono Red. But that doesn't mean he needed to swing in there. That was, you know, can't blame me for your misplays. If he plays Lurrus, can he get back a Call of the Death Dweller? It's got to be 2 or less, right? So you can get back a Dreadhorde Butcher, but what do we care about a Dreadhorde Butcher now? So do we play the Annex next, or do we play Bone Crusher Giant? I'm assuming we play... I mean, it's more or less the same thing. So he's fetching a Whisper Squad. Does he swing? He absolutely shouldn't, but he did last time. So I should have saved the Bone Crusher Giant. I mean, even saving the Bone Crusher Giants doesn't really do much for us. That's fine. So now he might swing. which would be good for us. I hope he does swing. Yeah, please, do it. Ah, no balls. So now we can... I honestly think I'm going to shock the Serrated Scorpion, because I don't really care that I take 2 damage and he gains 2 life there. I'm going to play an Annex, so we have a solid blocker. We're going to not attack with the Obosh, because what's the point? He can take out our 1/1 token, but that's fine with me. I should have saved the shock for Lurrus. That's my misplay. Because he can play Lurrus now and get something back. So he's going face rather than going Obosh, which that's a misplay on his part. Target opponent or Planeswalker. Okay, so he can't just do it to anything. I'm wondering if this is a replacement for Mayhem Devil. Yeah, see, right here. This is where I should have saved the shock for. That was a massive misplay on my part, because he gets the recursion here. So if I don't draw into some removal, that sucks. But he does have to contend with a 6/3 Annex, which we have another of. That's fine. Okay, so we have the... This he can't block. Oh, shit. I wanted to take Obosh back, but what are you going to do? That could be game because of that mistake. And he gets the lifelink there, so... Down to 2. He needs to find an answer to that Phoenix or he's done. That Phoenix was a huge draw. And if he doesn't find an answer to the Phoenix, which he keeps hovering over it... The good thing about the Phoenix, though, is we can bring it back, I'm pretty sure. Exile 3 other cards. Yeah, we can bring that back. So we can just keep bringing that back on him. Does he have a way to sack it? Four, 5, 6, 7. Okay. So that's an amazing draw. We'll play what we need, and that's game. So look at that. Maybe Mono Red Obosh is all it's cracked up to be. We went 4-1. I still just think maybe it's because I'm not a huge fan of aggro decks in general. We'll just kind of go back into the deck itself here. But I just don't see this deck being as strong as everybody says it is. I mean, we won 4 games and lost 1 in low plat, so, you know, the deck definitely has merit, and people have gotten to Mythic with it, so it must be good, but it just feels like if you lose Obosh, that's game. You know, all these 1-drop, these 1/1 1-drops are just super vulnerable. Even when you get Heraldic Banner down and they're swinging in, doing 2 damage each, it just doesn't seem like enough. It feels like even when you win, you're hanging on to that win by a very thin thread. Like one turn later, you could have lost it. And that was that way even in the last game that we played. Admittedly, I made a few pretty significant misplays, and we still got wins. So, I mean, that just goes to show you play it perfectly, you'll probably feel stronger about it. And I mean, I went 4-1, so that's evident in and of itself that this deck is strong and you can climb the ladder with it. But I just personally feel like there are better decks out there. Ones that are more fun to play, ones that are stronger, and ones that when you're winning, it feels like a solid win. You feel like you're in control, and when you've lost, maybe it doesn't feel like you ran out of steam at turn 5, and then you're just watching your opponent win for however long it takes for them to overpower you. So, you feel like you're in control for longer during the game, and maybe one good draw on their side ended the game, rather than this where after a certain opening turns, it's just game over, and you're hoping for a godly top deck or something, which I mean that is the nature of aggro, so maybe that's the way it goes. But things I would cut, things I would change, I wouldn't really change much about it at all. Obviously, if you have more Castle Emberths, go up to the 4 that you can and drop the regular mountains down to whatever you need. Phoenix of Ash, possibly something you might want to add more of. It saved us an entire game there at the end. That last game that we played against the Luris deck wouldn't have been necessary for that to have been our saving grace if I didn't make as many misplays as I did. But this deck does have a sideboard here if you want to take a look at it. Our sideboard, we have Blazing Volley. This is basically just for the mirror match. So in the mirror match, you basically cut almost all the 1/1s, and you just throw in some Blazing Volleys. You hope you draw into them, and then you can clear their board while keeping your board. You can also throw in some Chandra's Acolytes of Flame so that you get 1/1s. You sacrifice them at the end of the turn. Act of Treason, just a way to, you can take control of a creature and swing in with it. Could help end a game. Grafdigger's Cage is for all those decks that are playing things out of graveyards. And Redcap Melee, it's removal, and you can sacrifice a land, which, in a deck where you're usually playing things in for low land anyway, losing a land. Sometimes, if Obosh is already out there, losing a land isn't probably a big deal. So just great removal and at somewhat of a low cost. So yeah, that's basically your sideboard. I have 2 Claims of the Firstborn. You really don't need to. You could cut it down to 1, do more Tybalt, more Chandra, more Act of Treason, maybe another Grafdigger's Cage, something like that. But really, you're not going to be sideboarding much with this deck. I mean, this is very much a best of 1. If you're playing it in best of 3 with a sideboard, you have these options, but really, this is your meat and potatoes. This is what you're going to be getting wins with. This is the deck that you should mostly be playing with and leaving unchanged. So if you want to play Obosh, all the power to you. We went 4-1. I hope you have a similar record. But best of luck to you out there, because I feel like this deck just isn't strong enough in the current meta and with what everybody's playing. But if you like Mono Red, it is Mono Red through and through. So go ahead and go out there and you can make this deck and play it. I mean, if you're looking for a deck to play on ladder and you're trying to you're trying to spend your wild cards wisely, I wouldn't spend it on this, but that's just my personal opinion. I think the Embercleave deck is stronger. If you're going to spend wild cards, spend it on that. Of course, you have to spend the mythics for Embercleave. But if you've seen this deck and you've liked it, it clearly performs well against however often I can say it. I feel like it isn't as good as it's cracked up to be, but clearly it is. So if you like the way it plays, go out there and spend your wild cards. Otherwise, good luck to y'all out there, and thanks for watching.